Hi everyone, I'm Anthony DiMoro, and welcome to a brand new episode of Ranters Insider right here on Sports Rants TV and courtesy of SportsRants.com, where social media and sports talk collide. I know it's been a while, it's been several months since I've done a Ranters Insider, but I'm back in the saddle, so to speak. And for those of you new to the show, this is an extension of Sports Rants Radio. And basically, this is an online web show where I answer your questions via Twitter, and I also talk about some of the topics circulating the sports world. I'm going to try to do this every weekend, especially as we gear up towards the NFL season. I know it's months away. We got to get through the draft first, but heck, NFL season's getting closer and closer each day, so when the season approaches, I'm going to turn this into a preview show for each of the game, make my predictions every Sunday, so it should be fun. Until then, plenty of baseball, plenty of NHL, plenty of NBA action to talk about and to hold us over until NFL season takes control. Speaking of the NFL, Chris Johnson, wasn't he supposed to sign this week? Pick a team? I don't care. To be honest with you, I don't care. Chris Johnson is the latest line of running backs in a non-running league that is going to make minimal impact upon his signing. I mean, we're waiting on pins and needles for Chris Johnson, who rushed for 2,000 yards like forever ago and has been in sharp, steep decline since then, and he's the only one who hasn't noticed it. What is he really going to bring to the table to a team? Unless they're a super powerhouse, a super heavyweight, like the New England Patriots or the Denver Broncos or even the Seattle Seahawks or the San Francisco 49ers, it doesn't matter where Chris Johnson goes. He's not going to be the game changer. So if he goes to the Jets, is he going to be a game changer there? No. He may win them an extra game, maybe two, but a big game changer? Is he going to elevate them to a Super Bowl team? Absolutely not. You see, running backs in a non-running league, well, this is why they're not getting the big money anymore. That's why teams are more content on passing like someone like a Chris Johnson and drafting a replacement in the draft. And you know what? Running backs are rarely going in the first round anymore. Teams are showing a propensity to actually be more comfortable selecting running backs in the later rounds. We saw this with Trent Richardson, the last running back drafted in the first round in the first 10 picks. Look where that ended up. He's entering bust territory, and the Browns couldn't wait to ship him out of Cleveland. So Chris Johnson hasn't picked a team yet. Big deal. As far as I'm concerned, a big roll of the eyes. And that's why I think it's a non-story wherever Chris Johnson goes, because he's not going to be the game breaker. Alright, last night, on Saturday night here, folks, we had a rematch a couple of years in the making. A chance to right an injustice, and it was Manny Pacquiao going up against Timothy Bradley Jr. Now, out of protest, I didn't spend a dime to watch this fight. Wasn't going to, because I watched the first fight and felt like anyone who watched the first fight was genuinely ripped off by the sport of boxing, which is crooked as the letter L. And let me tell you, I won't pour money into boxing until it rights this ship, and it seems like they did so last night. But again, out of principle, I'm not giving you any more of my money boxing. And you know what? In a right world, which it isn't, boxing would have turned around, looked at the decision a couple of years ago that was clearly erroneous, and offered people who had that pay-per-view a discount to get this pay-per-view. But asking me to spend another close to $70 on a fight that I'm not convinced is going to be fair or called honestly, well, I'll save my money. If I want to watch something with a predetermined result, I'll watch wrestling. But last night, Manny Pacquiao did what he did in the first fight. He beat Timothy Bradley's ass pillar to post, round by round. Now, most people had it scored 10 rounds to 2 in Pacquiao's favor, and there was a moment within the fight where he almost dropped Bradley, and I gotta give Bradley a lot of credit. This is one humble dude. He's very confident. I like Timothy Bradley. And since their last fight, Timothy Bradley has been one of the fastest rising stars in boxing. He's been really improved, and I thought he'd have a better showing against Pacquiao. Pacquiao, with a lot of questions about when he's going to retire looming over him, well, he reverted back to his aggressive ways, took control of this bout, and beat Timothy Bradley. And this time, the judges removed their heads from their asses, and they got it right. The unanimous decision in the favor of Manny Pacquiao. Now, where this goes from here, who knows? It's boxing, so we're just going to let the chips fall where they may. All right, the NBA playoffs are right on the horizon, and one of the most fiercest chases is happening out in the Western Conference. Go figure. What happens in the East anymore, really? The Western Conference for that 8th seed, and it's coming down to the Phoenix Suns and the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm a huge Suns fan. I don't make an apology for that. Put it all over Twitter. I'm a huge Suns fan, and I love the rebirth that they've had this season. Hello, let's start getting Jeff Hornacek some Coach of the Year considerations with what he's done with that roster. A roster that before the season, many experts had picked to be in tank mode. They thought they'd be the last place team in the West. And here we are, a few days away, the end of the regular season, and the Suns and Grizzlies is going to come down to them in a big game on Monday night when Memphis and Phoenix square off. Now, if they weren't squaring off, Phoenix would have to hope to win more games than Memphis because Memphis owns the tiebreaker at the present time. These two teams are squaring off Monday, which means this could be the deciding factor for the 8th seed in the West. Regardless, there needs to be more parity in the NBA, especially with the playoff structure. Now, I like the idea of taking the top 16 seeds, like NCAA does. I mean, put them up in region if you really want to. Who knows? That's kind of how they're aligned in the East and Western Conference. But take the first 16 teams and have them battle it out. First goes to 16, second goes to 17, and so on and so forth. Or 16, 15. You get what I'm saying. But that creates interest in the league again, because there shouldn't be teams in the Eastern Conference sub 500 that are in the playoffs, making top seeds in the playoffs. I mean, a 5th seed, a 6th seed, a 7th seed. Why teams with a far better record in the West aren't even in the Western Conference playoffs. This needs to change. I think a format where you ignore conference when aligning the playoffs is the best way to go. Another playoff situation is on the horizon, and it's in the NHL. First off, congrats to the Boston Bruins, who finished the season capturing their first President's Trophy since the 89-90 season. Now, do I like the Bruins heading into the playoffs in the East? I like the Montreal Canadiens, to be honest with you, and I got a pull for my Pittsburgh Penguins, but you also got to like what the New York Rangers have done this season. A nice turnaround after doing a little overhaul last season. I really like what the Rangers have done. They've stepped it up. I think they've made their mark, but I like the Canadiens. They seem to have a lot of momentum behind them, and of course, I'm always pulling for my Penguins. So, again, congratulations to the Boston Bruins. In the NHL playoffs, of course, you can catch all the action at sportsrants.com/NHL. All right, let's go to our fan mail section. Now, this is the section of the show, the part of the show where I take your questions via Twitter. And if I select your question and read it on air, you're going to see your tweet about right there. So let's get going. I got a couple in the mailbag right here. Let's get rolling. At Terrence M_Smith asks me, Manny and Floyd will fight when? Never. That ship has sailed as far as I'm concerned. And the boxing fan in me really wants to see that fight. I do. Who doesn't want to see Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather? In my opinion, Floyd has done everything to avoid Manny Pacquiao and fighting him, because Manny Pacquiao would beat Floyd Mayweather. And I'm not a big Floyd fan, but he's the best defensive boxer of all time and the best boxer in this generation. Hands down. Look at the guy's work. I can't argue that. But I cannot argue that he has ducked Manny Pacquiao. Something clear to me. So when are they going to fight? Never. We're never going to see it. And the only time we probably will see it is when they're well past their prime, washed up, just looking to grab a quick buck. All right, continuing on. Alex, sorry, buddy, at AGUI23 asks, do the Jets challenge for a wild card? Or if Chris Johnson goes to the Jets, does it put them over the top? I addressed this earlier. Chris Johnson won't put him over the top. He may help him out. But the Jets will challenge for a wild card this year. Listen, they had a decent record last year. I don't know what they're doing at quarterback, though. That's one thing that's confusing me, because if it's Geno Smith's team, then you have to bring in Michael Vick. Michael Vick's not being brought in to sit on the bench. Michael Vick's being brought in to start. So either you're not convinced that Geno Smith is the guy, or you want to make him make a challenge for that quarterback spot, make him battle and win it out in camp. Whatever the reasoning is, I just don't think they're settled at the quarterback position. This will hold them back this season. Do I think they're going to challenge for a wild card? Absolutely. I think the Jets and the Dolphins are going to be in the midst of a wild card race, definitely, along with several other teams, as it seems to be the case every NFL season. But Chris Johnson won't put them over the top. He will be a nice boost to them, but nothing that will assure them a playoff spot. Thanks for the question. Eric at FightFire00 says, is it too late for Cubs fans to start saying, we'll get them next year? Listen, I know what it's... Actually, I don't. I'm a Yankees fan. But I can imagine what it's like as a Cubs fan. And you know what? They're going through that rebuild mode. But I'll say this. Look at what the Mets have done. Sandy Alderson with the Mets, they have operated through a rebuild very, very nicely. You got to tip your cap to them. So while the Cubs may feel a little bleak about this season, maybe about next season, keep in mind if they have a formula that is similar to what the Mets have done, they're going to be fine in the long run. Baseball rebuilds, you got to rebuild the farm system first, and then you rebuild your major league roster. They take a lot of time. And I know the Cubs are used to hearing that. So who knows? This could be a season where you could see a little bit of promise from the Cubs. So I wouldn't quit on it yet, although I like the humor. Give it some time. Look at the young prospects coming up. Look at how what they're putting together, and then make the judgment. But don't bail on the season yet. All right, our last question comes from Doug at Detweiler8797. Have the Knicks become the sideshow of New York? No, they haven't, and they aren't. So they missed the playoffs. Okay. I think what this does is just completely flushes down the era in New York where we get players like J.R. Smith and Andrea Bargnani and, you know, the slew of other characters that don't fit together. The Knicks have had no identity since they started luring Amari Stoudemire to New York. They had no plan. Throw a bunch of money at some top players who don't necessarily fit together, but they play awesome on NBA 2K. I mean, awesome. When I put these five together, we win an NBA championship. Not the case. The Knicks aren't a sideshow in New York. Listen, I know they're disappointing, but Phil Jackson's going to right the ship there. Now, whether Carmelo Anthony is a part of those plans is yet to be determined. I happen to think no. I think he's gone. I think they should let him go. I think they should gut that entire roster and start from scratch. Whether or not he's a part of the future plans or not, Phil Jackson will get the job done. So I don't think they're a sideshow. It's unfortunate they missed the playoffs. I think they start... Listen, if you take away the first 2 months of the season, the Knicks actually played well the last half of the season. They really did. So you got to give them credit for... At one point in the season, we were saying, oh, they're done. That's it. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the East, one of the worst teams in the league. And now they actually had a legit shot at the playoffs until about 24 hours ago. So, a sideshow, no, but they need a lot of work. And I think it's the last time we'll see Carmelo Anthony in a New York Knicks jersey. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Ranters Insider. You can catch me over on sportsrants.com/TV, on YouTube, just look up Sports Rant. Catch us on Twitter at sports_rants, and of course myself at Anthony DiMoro. And if you have any questions, just pay attention to my tweets on Twitter. I send them out. I ask you to submit your questions for our fan mail section, and we'll do our best to get to them and answer them. And as always, if you want to be a contributor, sportsrants.com/sportsreporting has all the details, all the information, answers all your questions, our official application, and it also gives you the details on how you get paid to talk sports. So come on over, apply, send in your application, your writing sample, and hopefully we can add you to the talented team of contributors over at sportsrants.com. All right, folks, time for me to head on out of here. I'll be back at it next week. But as always, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and enjoy all the sports action. I'm Anthony DiMoro, and this has been a brand new edition of Ranters Insider. I'll catch you on the flip side.